show an example here of a nested loop. We've touched on it before, but not really, and I just wanted to show an example. For example, so a nested loop is a loop within a loop. So this is two for loops. So you need to be careful that you understand exactly how a nested loop gets read and executed by your programming language, okay, or by your computer. So for example, here we have a list called names, and I've got the Simpsons in there. I've got, well, I don't know if Bob's, yeah, maybe he's in the Simpsons. So you've got Homer, Bart, and Bob. Then you've got activities, which is drinks, coffee, use, and again, note that they're in quotation marks because they're strings. So now, what you need to understand is you've got for naming names, right? So it's going to look at that. So name is going to take on each one of that variables as it goes through the loop. Then it goes for activity in activities, and that does the same. It takes on each one of this till it gets to the end of the list. Then it's going to print name and activity. Now there's no conditions here. There's no if statements that it needs to read. So it's going to just take on every value. And it's going to print every value because there's no conditions to what must be printed or what statement, what must be executed, and what must not be executed. But one very important thing to note is this is not going to read for naming names, for activity and activities, and then go around and go to the next name and print that activity. It's going to first take on Homer. So for naming names, it's going to take on Homer. For activity and activities, it's going to take on drinks, coffee. Okay, but it's not going to go back up into this part of the loop until it has executed all of this in here. So, and only when it's done with this, does it go back up to the for loop and take on Bart and does all the stuff for Bart. So you have to understand that in a nested loop, this one is going to execute, which is the outer loop. Then the inner, it's going to execute the outer loop for each of the activities in the inner loop before it goes back on up into the outer loop and takes on the new value and does the same. So it's going to go Homer drinks coffee. Then it goes back, Homer uses his imagination. Homer fools himself. It's not going to, and only until it's done, only until Homer has executed all of his activities, will it say, okay, now I need to do it for Bart. And it will do the same, and then for Bob, okay? So Homer drinks his coffee, which we see there, that's the first activity. The second activity will be Homer uses his imagination, and then Homer fools himself, right? So there we see Homer using his imagination because the for loops or the nested for loops are telling him to do so. And then Homer fools himself. Now Bart wants his coffee, right? Because Bart is next. Bart saw that Homer drank coffee here on top, right? But Bart is not allowed to drink his coffee. As you will see over here, Bart does not get his coffee until Homer completed all of his activities. And it's very important that you remember that. Okay, here I've just highlighted it again. The first for loop will be executed, and all of the conditions or all of the elements in the next for loop will be executed, and if there's conditions to it, that will first execute before it goes back out into the outer or the first for loop that you've established. Okay, now let's have a look at two for loops with a condition. Here you have letters, you have words. Okay, so you're going to go for letter in letters, for word in words. If letter is in word, print letter word. So at this stage, you should know now that it's going to look at letter, and it's going to first check whether letter is in each one of, whether A here is in each one of this before it looks at B and checks if B is in each one of those. So technically speaking, if it's going to print letter and word, it's going to have to print A, and first go through this list and find the word that has A in it and print that before you will see any of the ones, before you see B being compared to any of the words. Okay? And you will see that it does exactly that. You will first see all of A stuff being printed, then B, then E, and then O. Okay.